Hello BookTube. Today I'm bringing you a continuation of my library tour. I've cleared off the books on my history bookcase and laid them on the bed, and I've cleaned off the shelf. So I'm going to go through them and reorganize them. Not entirely sure how that's going to look, but I'm hoping I can organize them by period. Like general history first and then by period. So the first book I have is, and that laid off on my bed, and it'll be a bit random. This is St. Edward's University, A Centennial History by William Dunn. When I got this from, obviously, St. Edward's University. I don't know if they still do it, but when I was a incoming freshman, every student got a copy of this book. I've never actually read it. I think I might have dipped into it a little bit, but never really read it. This is from a Friends of the Library book sale a few years ago. It is a survey of historic costume by Phyllis Torah and Keith Eubank. I've never read it cover to cover. I've looked at some bits of it, the ancient costume, and stuff, but it's a neat resource. A little battered though. Ancient Civilizations by Christopher Scare and Brian M. Fagan. I picked this up at Brazos Books in Waco for $6.99. This is basically a textbook of ancient civilizations. Technology in the Ancient World by Henry Hodges. I don't know what first got me interested in this book. I don't know if there was a reference to it somewhere, or I was just looking up ancient technology or something like that and came across this book. I interlibrary loaned it a few years ago, really liked it, and then bought a copy of this through Amazon's online used bookstore. Really good book. Gay Life and Culture, A World History, edited by Robert Aldrich. I think I first discovered about this book when I was looking for gay histories and came across this. This is one of, I want to say, like 3 big general histories of gay life and culture, or LGBT life and culture in the history. This is a edited, so it's a kind of a compilation with different writers writing on different periods, and rather richly illustrated. Really enjoyed this book. Quite liked it. Picked it up from Half Price Books through Alibris. Alexander the Great, His Life and His Mysterious Death by Anthony Everett. I'm on a bit of a bender for Alexander books. This came out a few months ago. before I started the channel. Looking forward to reading it. This is one of the options on my Nonfiction November TBR. This and Soldier, Priest, and God, which will be showing up here in a few minutes. Got this through Amazon. This is Age of Conquests, the Greek World from Alexander to Hadrian by Angelos Cheniotis. This was published by Harvard. Really good book. I read it last year or early this year and really enjoyed it. I picked it up through Amazon. Quite good. Looking forward to rereading it. This is Carthage by David Soren, Aika bin Abed bin Kadir, and Hedi Slim, or Heidi Slim. No, it's Hedi Slim. Picked this up from, I want to say, Friends at the Library book sale. I don't think I got this at Brazos Books. I'm pretty sure I got this at Friends at the Library book sale. I'm rather interested in Carthage and the Punic Wars. I used to have Adrian Goldsworthy's History of the Punic Wars and got rid of it. And I've been wanting to get it back for a while now, so hopefully this will sort of get me really more active in searching for it. I am looking forward to learning more about the history of Carthage itself. The Histories by Herodotus. Picked it up at Golden's Book Exchange, and am rather excited to finally get around to it. The Greeks and the Persians from the 6th to the 4th centuries by Herman Finkston. Picked this up Saturday at the Friends of the Library book sale. If you watch that video, you will see me hauling it. Look, From Alexander to Cleopatra, The Hellenistic World by Michael Grant. Picked this up from Brazos Books. Probably at the same time I picked up Ancient Civilizations. If you compare Brazos Books to Golden's Book Exchange, the two big independent used bookstores in Waco, Brazos Books, I think, tends to have a better history selection than Golden's. But Golden's has the comic books and probably maybe a better science fiction section. But I've not been to better Brazos Books in a while. Really need to correct that. Maybe in the new year. I'll come back to that pile in a second. So continuing on with books I hauled just recently. Byzantium, The Decline and Fall by John Julius Norwich. I bought this Saturday at the Friends of the Library book sale. It came from the Waco McLennan County Library System. I think this was like the only volume of John Julius Norwich's big 3-volume history of Byzantium. I want to say I read this one or the first 2 volumes years ago at the library at St. Edward's. I was on a big ancient history binge at the time, and I think I checked out all of their Byzantium books. The Byzantium trilogy by Norwich, the history of the Byzantine state by Ostrogorski, which I do want to pick up at some point in the future. The Slavs in European History and Civilization by Francis Dvornik. Rather looking forward to getting to this. For the continuance of the books I've picked up just recently, A Distant Mirror, The Calamitous 14th Century by Barbara W. Tuchman. I've read this a few times. I've checked it out from my local library. This is not a copy that they own. And I've been rather interested in picking up lately several of Tuchman's other books. The Distant Tower, her history of, I think that, no, it's not. Oh, what is it? Her history of the before World War One. I really want to get that. I read it a few years ago and loved it. And looking forward to eventually having a copy of my own. And Medieval Warfare by Peter Reed. Okay, now I managed to get a hold of that pile. By the Spear, I hauled this just recently, last month. This is a history of the Macedonian Empire. It's quite good, really liked it, picked it up from Better World Books, Dua Libris. This is Dividing the Spoils, The War for Alexander the Great's Empire by Robin Waterfield. This comes from the Woodridge Public Library through, I want to say either Owls or Discover Books. One of the two, I think. This is a history of the War of the Successors, the generals who succeeded Alexander the Great and who warred for decades to claim the entirety of his empire and eventually settled on like 3 successor states. The Antigonid dynasty in Macedonian Greece, the Seleucid dynasty in Asia Minor and Mesopotamia, and the Ptolemaic kingdom in Egypt. And yes, I want histories of all 3. Continuing with my Alexander the Great biographies, we have Alexander of Macedon, 356 to 323, a historical biography by Peter Green. This one came either from Owls or Discover through Alibris. I really enjoyed this book. It is a really interesting biography of Alexander the Great. And finally, the other contender for the Alexander the Great biography I will be reading in for Nonfiction November, Soldier, Priest, and God by F.S. Knighton. I picked this up earlier this year, or late last year, through Amazon. Okay. The Fall of Imperial China by Frederick Wakeham Jr. Picked this up at a Friends of the Library book sale a few years ago. Really looking forward to reading it eventually. This has no jacket, so I'll just try to do it from the side. This is John Tollan's The Rising Sun, The Decline and Fall of the Japanese Empire, 1830, was that 19? Let's go to the frontispiece. Oh, so... Okay, it's 1936 to 1945, and this is volume 2. That is rather annoying. Picked it up at a Friends of the Library book sale. Yeah. The Rise and Fall of Mayan Civilization by J. Eric S. Thompson. Picked this up at a Friends of the Library book sale, and I want to say, oh no, this came from the Texas State Library. in Austin, Texas. Wonder how the heck the Friends of the Library Booksale got this. Oh well. I've been meaning to get to this for a while. Okay. A few more piles to go. The Story of Egypt by Joanne Fletcher. I hauled this about a week ago. Really great history of ancient Egypt. Picked this up through Better World Books via Libris. Definitely one of the best ancient Egypt histories I've read. Great Civilizations of Ancient Africa by Lester Brooks. This is from Robinson High School Library. Picked it up through the Friends at the Library book sale. A History of the Ancient World by Chester G. Starr. Again, a acquisition through the Friends of the Library book sale. Really have got to get around to that one. And The Nile by Emil Ludwig. There. This is, let me see here. I want to say I picked this up. Okay, where is the... Is this an... Okay, yes. I'm not entirely sure how old this is. It might be from the 30s or early 40s. I picked this up from St. Edward's... St. Edward's University. I was about to say St. Edward's State. It's St. Edward's University. They used to every year, I don't know if they still do, they would have like one or two like racks of books, the little shelving carts of books, laying out that if you wanted to pick some up, you can. I think they were mostly discards and a few like old books like this that people didn't want anymore. I've got, let me show you real quick. Jot over here. I'm going to say around the same time, maybe a year or two, give or take. I also picked up from St. Edward's University this copy of the American Historical Review. It is the 110th volume, 5th issue, December 2005, and the 4th one. So, yeah. And I actually rather like these two. If they weren't so expensive, I probably would think about getting a subscription to them at some point. So, almost finished. There's three more piles. Ooh, this one here. Hugh Thomas's A History of the World. Big, global history, I guess. Picked it up from a Friends of the Library book sale. The Fall of the Dynasties, The Collapse of the Old Order, 1905 to 1922 by Edmund Taylor. Waco, McLean County Library. So picked it up through the Friends of the Library book sale. Wind in the Tower, Mao Zedong and the Chinese Revolution, 1949 to 1975 by Han Suyin. Hoping I pronounced that right. Picked it up from the Friends of the Library book sale because it came from the Waco McLennan County Library. Sometimes there are choices to discard some books make me what I worry about them. Okay. So we have Suetonius, Lives of the Caesars. This was from Golden's Book Exchange. The Economy of the Greek Cities. Friends of the Library Book Sale. Actually rather good. I think that was the one that was... Because I think I had another book on the economy of the ancient Greek cities and found it rather not what I wanted. The Holy Roman Empire by... Somewhere I will find a copy. James Viscount Bryce. This is a 1963 edition. Reprint from a book first published in 1864. This was... Oh, I was wrong. This is a Wickham McLennan County Library too. I haven't gotten around to reading this one, but there's a History of the Holy Roman Empire by Friedrich Heer, which is really good. Ronald Hetton's The Witch, A History of Fear from Ancient Times to the Present. Just recently picked this up. Came out a year or so ago. Was rather interested in it. Finally bought it. I tried to get into it earlier this year, and yeah, definitely need to give it another go. Might be a tad more on the dry side. The Medieval Foundations of England by G.O. Sales. This I picked up through the Friends at the Library book sale. Feudal Society by Mark Bloch. This is Volume 1, The Growth of Ties of Dependence. Friends at the Library book sale. A History of Venice by John Julius Norwich. I want to say this is Friends at the Library book sale. It's in somewhat rough shape. But yeah, rather happy for this. Venice is one of those areas of history that I'm quite interested in, and Renaissance Italy in general. And finally, the last pile of books, and then I have to put them all back, reorganize them and put them all back. We have A History of the Arab Peoples by Albert Hourani. I want to say I picked this up from Golden's Book Exchange, which is rather pleasing that I did manage to find this. History and Society by Noah Edward Fail. I want to say I either picked this up through the Friends at the Library book sale in Waco or the St. Edward's book giveaway or something. I don't quite remember. A History of the Weimar Republic, From the Collapse of the Empire to Hindenburg's Election, Volume 1, Eric Ike. I want to say I picked this up through either Friends of the Library book sale or St. Edward's. I'm not entirely sure which one. A Brief History of the Caribbean by Jan Rogozinski, which is on the docket for Nonfiction November. Picked it up through the Friends of the Library book sale, and am looking forward to finally getting around to reading it. And finally, and definitely one I got from St. Edward's University, John Keegan's The First World War. I know, just Dust Jacket. I really like this book. This is a really good history of the First World War. So definitely, if you're at all interested in it, the First World War, If you haven't read John Keegan's First World War, check it out. He also has a number of other really interesting books too. So definitely he's a writer to look forward to. So I am rather surprised I managed to do this in about 25 minutes. I'd expected to do 2 parts to this, so that's maybe a bit disappointing or depressing. Or I'm a bit more truncated on these. But I do want to expand my history collection. I have, like, there's limited space for it. I have a small 3-shelf bookcase that I hold them in. But I think once that bookcase gets filled up, I'm going to move them to this wall shelf I have up here over my desk. Although maybe I should move them to the headboard bookcase. I mean, what I really would like to do is get a 3 or 4 foot, still kind of like not quite moderate sized or in width bookcase that I can put on. I can put the bookcase I have now on top of it, and then just that's the combined history bookcase. But trying to find a 4 foot bookcase with a top that you can put another bookcase on top of that is about no more than 2 feet in width is proving to be rather difficult. So yeah, anyway, I will let you go, BookTube. Talk to you later.